Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming into our space, and welcome back to season 2, a brand new season of the JN Circle Life Class series. I'm your host, Kamala McQuinney, and I am more than excited to be back. Can I just pause to give a big shout out to the JN group, to just tell them thanks for having another iteration of this excellent space. And to all of you who are returning viewers of the Life Class series, welcome back. You know what an amazing experience you're going to be having for the next several weeks. And for those of you who are brand new to our space, I bet you we're going to make returning viewers out of you. So again, I'm Kamala. Welcome to the space. This evening, I have the absolute pleasure of the company of Patricia Oberly and Carla Moore. And our topic for this evening is We Made It. We Made It. Lessons from Surviving 2020. And before we get into the juiciness of tonight's convo, we have a couple of housekeeping matters. So please, as you're getting comfortable, kindly allow me to share screen one more time, just to give you a quick rundown of how the platform works and how we can have the most interactive session for the next 2 hours. Okay, so let's go again. And of course, you know how the Zoom lifestyle goes. I need your feedback to tell me, Carla and Pat, can you see my screen?
I can indeed, yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. So again, our topic is We Made It. Today is December 2, and we're celebrating having come this far in a very strange year. And we're talking about lessons from surviving 2020. As I mentioned, I'm your host, I'm your journey guide. I'm Kamala McQuinney. I'm a therapist and coach, and I am with White Lotus Blooms Wellness Services. That's my brand, that's my company. And as I mentioned this evening, our panelists are Patricia Oberly. Say hi, Pat.
Hi.
She's a licensed counseling psychologist, so she's a colleague of mine. And the effervescent and ever on point, Carla Moore. She is life coach, artist, activist, academic, and alchemist. Okay?
Hi.
Now, because for those of you who are returning viewers, I can't be good enough, right? You know that we love to have fully interactive and immersive convos. So we're going to be allowing you to share your thoughts, share your responses on the platform. You can utilize the chat to drop in your comments. So as the convo is going on, a point hit you, or it make you feel some type of way, you can drop your feelings in the chat. We also have the raise hand feature, which is when it is that we ask you if you want to participate, if you want to come on stage, so to speak, you can raise hand, click the icon, and we will choose one of you, perhaps for each segment, to come and talk the things them on the microphone, so we can really share space with you. And then we also have a Q&A feature, which would allow you to ask questions directly of the lovely Carla and Patricia. And we will do our best as much as we can to get through as many of the questions as time will allow. So please bring your questions, your scenarios, your feedback, your whole selves to our conversation this evening. All right, just already see some comments in the chat. Everybody's just bigging up everybody. Claudine says, happy Wednesday. Hi, Claudine. It's good to almost see you. And so let me officially ask you to give your feedback. We always love to start with a check-in. How have you been doing? How are you doing today? And so we're now launching our Thrivometer pre-class poll. So please just start the honest truth of how you're feeling, what your thoughts are. And when we're finished with our class or towards the end, we're going to ask you to give your feedback again. So we have a post check. Okay. So please go forth. I believe that it's now launched. You can go ahead and give your feedback. And when you have finished, in another 3 or so minutes, I'll read the results of our poll. All right. So let me tell you a little bit more about Pat Oberly. She is the holder of a BSc and Master of Arts degrees in psychology from both the UWI and Nichols State University in the USA. She has 40 years of experience in admin and HR. And in 2005, she had a revelation, apparently, Pat. And
yes, ma'am, something like that, when retirement reached me.
Good. So she made a very interesting shift from HR and admin into psychology. And in her mind, in her vision, it was a way of giving back. So she has lots of experience in areas such as grief and trauma, ADHD, etc. And she currently is married and the mother to one son. So she brings years of experience to our conversation. And of course, the parenting piece, Pat, and of
Yes,
course, the
ma'am.
relationship piece. So we're going to be
Oh,
drawing on
yes. All of the above.
all of the above in our convo this evening. And for many of you, to many of you, Carla Moore is no stranger. She is an artist, she's a life coach, she's an activist. I'm sure you have come across her work in some social media sphere or other. And she currently is also academic in that she lectures at the Institute for Gender and Development Studies, MONA unit. And if you want to find her and looking for a business a little deeper, you can find her on many social media spaces at More Talk JA. That's MOORE Talk JA. So ladies, I can't tell you how excited I am and grateful too. Number one, to be back in season 2, to have Carla, a favorite from season 1, back with us, and a new favorite, I'm speaking it into being, Pat Oberly, joining us,
Ma'am.
and to be at December 2 of this very interesting year, right? So firstly, I don't know if is the poll ready to my tech team? So we can get that shared and kind of have a feeling of how everybody has been. Here we go. Are you able to see it, panelists?
Yes.
Everything is working tonight. Thank you. All right. So the first question was, how would you describe your current mood? 63% of you said okay, 22 said happy, 3% said ecstatic, and 4% said miserable, 7 said sad. All right. Fair and honest, no judgment on any of these. The second one said, during this year, I felt mostly hopeful, says 12% of you. 78%, an overwhelming amount, my fellow panelists said they were experiencing mixed emotions.
That's not unusual.
We're not surprised at all.
Yes.
In terms of what you're expecting from this class, 42% of you said tips on how to prepare for a new year, 34% coping and self-care tips, 24% said inspiration to make it to the end officially of 2020, and we've got you covered. The next question was, I recognize the emotional and social toll 2020 has taken on me, and I'm very pleased to see how many of us have that level of awareness. 78% of you said yes, 21% said sort of, kind of. And the last one for our pre-class poll, I have practiced greater self-compassion during this pandemic. 60% of you said yes, 7% of you said no, and 27% of you said sort of. So we're not surprised by the results. We thank you so much for sharing and for being so quick on the draw. And of course, we have a loaded conversation to give you the exact things that you walked into the space expecting to get. All right. So now, ladies, Carla and Pat, make we talk our business for a quick second. Because we can't be asking our panelists to come and our guests to share what
we can share.
And we don't open up the argument. So first of all, what for you, Pat, have been the most difficult aspects of 2020?
All right. So for me, 2020 started off with a bang. Happy, joyous, everything is wonderful, right? Then comes March. And somebody's going to tell me that I must lock down. I can't go to work. I can't do anything. But being the eternal optimist, I said to myself, that's okay. I can use this time to really do what I love to do the most, which is nothing. So I took the opportunity to just do nothing, unplug. Of course, that didn't happen because Zoom came about, and so work continued the same way, right? But the thing which impacted me the most was this yearning for physical contact as the months grew from 1 to 2 to 3 to 5. Yearning for physical contact was driving me crazy. I love my husband, you know, but him alone can't do. And I don't hug up the dog then. So it was this, I would go to visit my mother, and I'm relegated to the veranda because she's an old lady, so that nobody wants me to come in from off the street, and you're seeing clients. I don't know if your clients have COVID, you know? So it was this yearning for physical contact, which was my first thing. And then the second thing was not being in control. All of my life, I have charted my course. I know what I want to do. I know where I'm going, and I make it happen. Now, all of a sudden, my every move is directed and guided, you know? So those were the two most difficult things for me in this whole pandemic.
Thank you for sharing that. Carla, I see you nodding over there, so please jump in. What's been happening in your space?
So I was kind of in the same place where I was prepared for 3 months of COVID. I was like, yeah, man, 3 months. So I got started
Mhm.
out.
The
COVID,
magic
I go,
number. I
where
had
does
it
it
too.
mean? I said, three. We say, yeah. Why? I can't manage 3 months. I mean, and then COVID just kept going on. Like that thing that she said where not being in control, I didn't realize how much not
Yes.
being in control unsettled me
Mhm.
until I was dealing with COVID and it started to feel as though everything was just spinning and I couldn't stop any of it. And having to deal with all of these measures that kind of over directed how I could show up in a space, how
Yeah.
long I could stay
Yeah.
in a space,
What
what I could do in
time?
a space, what time I could do in a space, it really was impacting me. And I think for me, one of the hardest things about COVID, and it's also the blessing, but it was hard, was coming home to myself,
Mm.
being quiet, not having as many distractions, although Zoom really did come in like a champ to
Mhm.
keep us
Mhm.
going, but have being so quiet and actually coming to a deeper understanding of what it felt like to be me. Like, what did it sound like in my brain? What is
Mhm.
the voice that talks to me? How does that voice really sound? And so for me, I had to come face to face with my anxiety, So all of that silence and being locked away, all of a sudden, like, agoraphobia is blossoming,
Mhm.
like anxieties, health anxiety is peeping out. All of these different anxieties which were there and I was coping with them or they were latent. But like that coming home to myself, I've been in the process of coming home to myself for years. But it's like COVID shove you in, it locked the gate, it locked the door, it turned off the
Right.
light, and it's like you and you. And I was like, but this not nice. Some of this is not nice.
Yes.
Some of the
All.
things that are in my home, my self home, are not nice. And it was just really hard to look at. It was mixed because I get it when people say mixed emotions because it was the blessing too. But that first part, makajuk,
Mhm.
makajuk, makajuk, makajuk. Yeah.
Actually, when we created the poll, Carla and Pat, I was wondering how many people would have been um, open to saying that, listen, it has not been a smooth road, or I have
Mhm.
realized the toll. Because sometimes I feel like we kind of get into this mode of just going along.
Yeah.
We're just
Right.
going along and we're stronging it out. Especially
Mhm.
as Caribbean people, we have a tendency to just keep strong and keep going. But I'm
Mhm.
pleasantly surprised by how many people by now have realized that something is very different in
Yeah.
my functioning, etc.
Yeah.
I saw someone coin a term early in the pandemic, which I love, the Corona coaster. And
Right.
from
I
my
was going to
experience, if
say.
I might share, in the first, let's say from March to maybe even August, I was like, it's not cute, as Carla said, but we can continue.
Yeah.
But then
Right.
like September came and I'm saying to myself, no, 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 this really
Enough
again
already.
getting a little bit serious now.
Yeah.
And so now at December, I am feeling like I'm completely out of it. I'm feeling over it. Because early in pandemic, I was getting baking recipes. I was going to be the best cook ever. I reorganized my
Mhm.
closet. I found so many things to do to just make use of the changing
Yeah.
tides.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But now we have cooked several recipes which are new and them taste nice.
Yeah.
We have written several articles. We have done so, and we're just wondering what else. So
Yeah.
I'd
Mhm.
love to hear from both of you at this stage, at December 2, we have 20, how much days left now? 29 days left until the end
Mhm.
of 2020.
Mhm.
What
Mhm.
is most present in your emotional space, Carla?
For me, at this point, December 2, what's most present for me is actually how can I be even more gentle with myself? That's the thing
Mhm.
that's at the front of my emotional space because I recognize that while the external impact of living through COVID was hard, the internal was harder, and I need support. I need to support myself through this. I was right there with you because, the people were like, if you don't come out with a podcast or you haven't written a new book or you don't know a new
You're
language or you
wasting.
haven't launched a new business, you're wasting all of your time. And Harvard was dropping all of the free courses that you could do and everybody was signing up for something, right? And then the time wears on and you're not seeing your family and you're not seeing your friends and you feel like a threat to everybody you encounter and everybody feels like a threat to you. And you
Yes.
realize that you're cycling through these emotions rapidly. I'm fearful, I'm angry, I'm resentful, I'm afraid, I'm alone, I'm
Yes.
lonely, I'm lonely, I'm lonely. And I think for me, what's at the front of my mind is how can I be even more gentle with myself? How can I reframe these expectations that I have for how I'm supposed to be so that I can show up to what is actually happening for me,
Mhm.
so that as COVID continues into 2021, because it is, I can make it feel less awful for myself moving forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that, Carla. As usual, very well said. Pat, what's yours?
Right, right. Well, I have been lucky in the sense that I'm 100 years old. I have a lot of experience. I have a lot of support. And most importantly, I do not have a mental health problem. And that I'm telling you, people who survive COVID, who have any kind of emotional disturbance, I take my hat off to them. Because as somebody who is just blessed and lucky, it's luck of the draw, that I don't have anxiety or depression or any one of those things, right? But I treat people like that. And when I see them surviving this unusual, this unnatural state, Carla, I take off my hat to you, sweetheart. Because anxiety is number one in this whole pandemic roller coaster. What do you call it? What is
Roller coaster.
right, right. Anxiety is the big one. Even people who didn't normally were not normally living with anxiety. All of a sudden, their anxiety went through the roof. Do you
Mhm.
understand? So, what is foremost in my mind right now is to expect anything. Nobody could have prepared me for a situation where it's not just Jamaica, it is the entire world. And I have a child who is 32 years old and he's bringing a baby into the world in December. And I'm full of concerns about those things, about my daughter in law being in hospital in this time. You know what I mean? Anything can happen, the baby and all of that thing. So, really and truly, what is foremost in my mind now is how to go forward in 2021 with not too many expectations because I'm a big planner. I always have a big plan and something wonderful to do, and I'm getting ready for this and getting ready for that. I've learned how to calm it down a bit and just wait and see what's gonna happen and not have too many expectations. But at the same time, I do have hope. I'm big on hope because if we don't have hope, then we can't move forward.
I love it.
Facts.
I love it. It's such a loaded journey. And I love
Yes,
how Pat was able to identify with, in no uncertain terms, the fact that we do have some levels of privilege that sometimes we
yes,
aren't very aware of.
Yeah.
Because to not be living with a mental issue or a mental disorder is privilege. And so
absolutely.
I've been hearing all these very witty, philosophical things on social media, and I'm embracing so many of them.
Yeah.
And one of them is the fact that we are all in the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat.
Mm-hmm,
So some
mm-hmm.
people boat rickety.
Bigger than some,
Sometimes
yes.
the physical boat is rickety. And so
That's
taking
right.
people to Tana Yard has been something that has generated so much controversy, right?
Mm-hmm,
In the
mm-hmm.
Jamaican landscape in particular, because what are the conditions, in someone's home being so vastly different from yours, for example?
Yes, yes,
And,
of
and,
course.
and it's very important for us to be sensitive to the fact that yes, we're all in the pandemic, nobody can escape, but
Mm-hmm.
my resources
Yeah.
are different from somebody else's.
Yes.
And so I love that already we're framing so many powerful truths
Yeah.
about the journey. I'd love to hear from our audience a little bit more. What is most present for you as our viewers tonight as we are at December 2? How are you feeling now? Are you feeling mostly hope? Are you feeling like, listen, I'm tired, I'm at the end of my rope? What's most present for you? I see Daphne mentioning, okay, it caused a big disappointment in my life, the postponement of a special birthday plan, a birthday party
Mm,
planned by my children. I love the honesty in this space always. Hi, kiddies. Let me tell you something. Carla, you and I spoke about it briefly
Mm.
in our quick chat, I think it's yesterday. The
Mm.
fact that loss for many of us has been redefined and has
Yes.
been fine-tuned because
Yes.
early in pandemic I love the social media debates. They can annoy me, but they also edify sometimes. And there was a
mm,
raging debate about the fact that some people were mourning losing a job,
Yeah.
losing the ability to be able to have their weddings,
oh
losing the
yeah.
chance to migrate to foreign for their new jobs. And some people were saying, you are mourning that, and people are mourning the loss of loved ones.
Yeah.
And there had to be a conversation about the fact that, listen, loss is loss, and all loss is valid.
Yes.
That's right.
So,
That's
so,
right.
so Carla, talk me through what have been some of what you have been picking up as you're engaging with the persons you serve and with your community in terms of this conversation of loss.
I think you, like you hit it, is a lot of us have guilt around the feelings of loss. And so we start out with the best of intentions, trying to be fair. I'm trying to be fair. I know that other people are losing more than me. And because we're trying to be so fair, we actually end up being unfair to ourselves in a way because you can't show up to what you are feeling because the only thing you're doing is filtering it through who has it worse. But
Mhm.
people have lost a lot. People have lost freedom of movement.
Yes.
People have lost jobs. People have lost opportunities. You were supposed to go overseas for a conference or because you're doing a lecture and it was going to contribute to your resume, your CV. You know, you were supposed to do study abroad and that like a travel overseas thing gone. No, you can't make the little money that come there or all of those types of things. Um, there are some people that they are losing a certain perception of themselves, right?
Mhm.
An idea of yourself. So many of us, our idea of ourselves is built up around I am productive, I am in control, I am in charge, I am a good worker. All of these things that are there, they're kind of external in a way. It's about you performing yourself in a certain way, but it's very important for you to understand yourself that way because it makes you feel safe in the world. And some of us, as we lose the jobs, as the hours get cut down and all of those types of things, no, we don't know who we are anymore. There are some of us who we're losing a sense of ourselves because when we have come home to ourselves, what we find there is not what we expected to find there. And so I thought that I was a very balanced person who had it together and I could manage crisis and keep going. I know you watch yourself a flounder, you look like fish out of water, just a blah, 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 blah. And you're like, excuse me, why am I on the ground gasping for air? I thought I had it together. So
Sure.
we're losing, and it's for us to actually just recognize that, it's okay for you to feel the way you feel. It's something that I have to say to myself again and again. It's okay for you to feel the way you feel. I can be compassionate to somebody who has lost a relative while at the same time being compassionate for myself and the loss of a wedding or a party or something that mattered to me because I am a person too. I extend compassion to people because I love people. I am people too. And so
Yes.
I'm going to treat myself like people.
That's
Yes.
Thanks.
right.
Carla, I don't know your middle name, but Carla, that more. Let me tell you. That last part that I am people too, we should frame it and put it on some t-shirts. Because
Mhm.
oftentimes I remember being on a radio program giving support to, my Jamaican listeners about
Yeah.
pandemic and how to manage. And I used the phrase self-compassion.
Yes.
And the question that came immediately was, doesn't that mean that you feel sorry for yourself? And I had to jump in with all of my energy to quickly say, no, 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 no. Self-compassion is a crucial piece of the journey. And
Yes.
without it, we are not going to be as effective, as giving, as well as we need to be. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Pat, are you finding in your clinical practice that persons are struggling with that whole thing of supporting self, especially when they are in caregiving roles?
Absolutely. And just to touch a little bit on the self-compassion thing, I had to explain to a client recently because I preach that as well, that self-compassion is not self-pity. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for yourself. I'm asking you to be in touch with what you're feeling, recognize what it is, acknowledge it for what it is, and then process it, right? So sometimes when you talk to a client and you use a phrase like self-compassion, they think, what is she saying? She want me to be sorry for myself. So I'm glad you raised that. Okay? It just means looking inwards and feeling for yourself in the same way that you feel for people. That's what Carla is saying. You can't just always be feeling for people, okay? But your question was what? What are the clients?
Do
What
you
was the
sense that
question?
several persons are struggling with that idea of supporting self, especially when
Yes,
they're in caregiving roles, parents
absolutely.
and those who are caring
Because
for
here what is happening to them now is a whole heap of good and a whole heap of bad, right? They are stuck at home with a husband, say for example, or a wife who they don't like. And they are forced to be in that space, especially if you live in a small space, okay? And then you have the children. No longer do they have the reprieve of going to work. That's 8 hours. where you don't have to deal with the misery, you know. So now that they're being asked to be mother, wife, teacher, I tell you, one of the biggest things that I've found in my practice is that people are now grateful. You know that song, Gratitude is a Must?
Indeed.
People are buying into it. I had a client who said to me, listen, if I had money, I would pay my son's teacher because I had no idea it was so tough, you know. But when asked to take care of themselves, that is a huge problem, you know. And then touching a little bit on the loss thing, a lot of people are worried. Our culture, when somebody dies, is to have a big funeral. I personally don't buy into it, but that's our culture, right? People are afraid to die. I have a client who said, look here, I am 70 and I'm sick with all kinds of things. I don't want to die now. I want to die when my children can come from abroad and that sort of thing, you know? So loss affects people in all kinds of different ways in this COVID experience.
I would have never thought about that specific way
Yes, I don't want to die.
until it can be what we used to.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, so much of our life has been altered by the pandemic. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to give some spotlight on the comments of our fabulous viewing family. They're sharing openly with us about how they have been doing. One person says, I'm neutral as I'm unsure what 2021 will bring. So I'm hoping for the best for the new year. But the end of the year feeling is, wow, I've made it through the uncertainties. Thankfully so. Monique says, hopeful but also disappointed. Could not get to come home to Jamaica to see my family. And we can only imagine how difficult that is. So many people love to travel at Christmas time, and
Yes.
that's not as recommended or as preferred by so many people right now. I'm seeing Novia says learning to adjust to the major changes, mixed feelings, some days fatigued, happy, sad, and feeling alone, but appreciating me more and realizing more skills and other ways to be happy, quote unquote, alone. You're
Mm-hmm.
speaking a strong word. Kimberly says, at the very beginning, I was so traumatized. I mourned the loss of my job. Then I realized I could be mourning the loss of someone I love. So gratitude and hope are what I'm feeling now. You
Right.
see, I love this space because the sharing is so genuine. Thank you to all of you for sharing so much. Nicole says, my graduation overseas was postponed. I was looking forward after 3 years to having that
Wow.
experience.
Yeah.
And that's just validating what we talked about earlier in
yeah,
terms of the validity of
yeah,
loss. Loss is real for everyone, you
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
know? Michelle says, like panelist early on, I was fine, followed the rules, stayed home, and felt I got this and I'm in control. Plus, actually saw my home in daylight. And that goes back to what Carla says, coming home to ourselves, a new way
Yeah.
of being. And Michelle says, no, just hanging there, control gone. Yes. And I'll pick up on some more as we go through. But thank you as always for sharing so openly. I would love to find out, as the experts have been sharing so much about the mental well-being part of it. Carla and Pat, have you gotten a sense or do you believe that the pandemic, because it affects us in so many ways, emotionally, psychologically, socially, do you feel as though the conversation about the stigma on mental health is getting to be more open? You feel like people are less afraid now to say, I am anxious, I am depressed, I'm feeling hopeless, etc. I see Carla nodding, so let me jump to you first.
On
Yeah.
Carla.
I think people are. I mean, I think there was a there was a shift that was already happening with more people joining the conversation and being willing to take it public.
Mhm.
And I think that COVID has created the conditions where it makes absolute sense that you would be anxious about it. So even the people who were reserved, well, this is a really good excuse because honestly, there's no way you could be anxious about a global
There you
pandemic.
go.
So yeah, I see a lot more people who are willing to talk about it, and I think Pat mentioned it earlier, both you, Pat and Kamala, that intersectionality, which is what happened when a global pandemic interact with a pre-existing mental health condition. That's
Yeah.
set up different. That's four
Mm-hmm.
levels of hard that you have to go through. And I think people are just at the point where I can't do anything. I can't get away from this pandemic. I am living inside of it, and it is big and it's ugly and it's scary. And I might as well just talk about it. I can't watch no face again.
Right, right.
Might as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has sort of normalized anxiety.
Mhm.
what I find is that a lot of people now who are living with other kinds of mental health concerns are comfortable now saying, I'm living with anxiety. It's not really anxiety, it can be several other things, but they're comfortable saying anxiety. So COVID has normalized anxiety because the whole world is anxious. It's not just me. Previously, if you're living with anxiety, something wrong with you. Because why you can't just calm down, I can just take it easy, take a chill pill. But the world is anxious now. And so one of the good things of COVID is that people are feeling free to say, I'm really feeling anxious about this thing. When I step out of my house, I'm not sure if I'm going to come back in without the COVID. I have friends who spend a whole heap of money on detergent. And I'm saying, what are you washing so? They are paranoid. But this paranoia is paranoia for cause, So and of course, everybody's an expert now, So all kinds of mental health jargon is being floated around. But for us as therapists, I tell you the good thing about it is somebody being able to say, I feel free to say,
Yes.
or I'm overwhelmed. Because all of a sudden now it's
I think Flo or Digicel has struck, whichever one of them is the culprit.
Yes, it has.
It has. So let me just pull up a more comment, and then I'm going to invite a member of our audience who wants to ask a question of the experts to raise hand, and will allow you to come on microphone to actually be able to engage in real time. I love Michelle Dwyer's comment. She said, I was sad at first and a bit fearful. First time experiencing, all of us, my dear, something like this, but some good has come from it. I became more focused. I started improving my skills, and I have now done loads of DIY making stuff. I started thinking about me more and living, not just existing, but living, though I was at home. More appreciated and taking my time to do things, no rush. And I have become a much better educator, more creative, and Zoom has taught me a lot. I am feeling proud of me. Thank you so much for sharing, Simone. And I think we have temporarily lost Pat. I think she'll be back on momentarily.
Yeah.
So I think we can hold off perhaps on the question until she comes back. We just want to continue talking about grounding this convo in the fact that it's normal. We want to normalize the fact that we've all had mixed reactions. For some people, it's been great, Carla.
Yeah.
For some people, it's been a very positive thing.
Yes.
And so we just want to leave space for the differences in how we all have been impacted.
It has been. I think one of the surprising things for me about living through COVID is the level of clarity that it gives you on what's actually important. There are things that I have wanted to do and I have put off for years that I went ahead with because you just start to get this sense that time is really fragile and it's really sacred, and you need to be very careful in how you use it. And also, you get clear on what do you want to do because you want to do it, and what do you want to do because people are expecting you to do it. And when you start to feel like time is running low, the thing that you want to do because you want to do it, that is the thing you're going to move towards. Like, you're going to move towards that quickly because it actually resonates with your heart versus, oh, these are people's expectations of me. Yeah. So
I heard so many people talking about the coming back home to me piece of it. And it's a huge, huge and powerful thing. Yeah. I see Pat is back with us. Greetings, Pat. Thank you for joining us again. And while Pat is getting settled again, I have a giveaway for our fabulous class members. I am always grateful to be able to share something, thanks courtesy of the JN group. And so for those of you who have a Digicel telephone, a cell phone, you have a chance right now, get your phones in hand if you're not using it to join the session, and you have a chance to win $1,000 credit from the JN group. And this can go towards keeping in touch, getting the data plan to attend next week's session, for example. And we want to give this away to one lucky person. So it's a matter of the quickness of your fingers. So we're going to roll out. I'm going to read the voucher numbers. So please be ready. And here we go. Digicel 10762 1230 6543. And I know I talk fast, but I hope we have a lucky winner somewhere in the chat. And if you have won it, just say me in the chat. And if not, if I don't hear anybody scream out me, then I will go again another time.
And then I will bring out my phone and I will collect the $1,000 worth of credit.
Because you need it. Can you hear me now, guys?
Yes, I need it.
Yes, we
Yes.
can. So now we have the chance to ask an audience member. Tamara Wright has won. Awesome. So in another couple of minutes at the next segment, we're going to be having another giveaway for those who have Flow devices. So get ready, you have another chance to win. So I'd love to invite an audience member who has a question or a scenario, of to share that they want to get some feedback on from Carla and Pat. So I see already a hand was raised, so perhaps that person came into the room ready. Carla? So let's see who this was or who this is. Oh, the hand went down. Okay. So is there anybody else who's on the session who'd love to come on microphone to ask a question of Pat or Carla about coping, about how to navigate a specific issue? And if not, you can bring it up for our next segment, right? So just raise your hand if you are so inclined, and we will take your question shortly. But in the meantime, as they say, I loved how Carla framed the next segment so perfectly earlier. Carla said, needs people too. And caring for me is a crucial part of well-being and a crucial part of life. It should be a crucial part. So I want us to segue now, Pat and Carla, into talking a bit more about self-caring. And automatically, when too many people hear the term self-care, we think of what? Spa days,
Mud mask,
mani-pedi, and mud mask, right? And oil rub down, and expensive spa appointments.
Yes.
But you and Pat know that that is not the sum total. That's only a fragment of the self-caring conversation. So we want to pick up the conversation now and spread out a table of self-caring practices.
Yeah.
So Pat, talk us through what are some of the ways in which self-care can self-care look?
Thanks. Can you see and hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. You ever hear about Murphy's Law?
Yes.
The internet in my office went down. That's why you couldn't hear me before. I leave my house to come here because here it's stable and it went down. So I'm on data now, Carla. I'm like you. I'm working on data now.
Welcome, Pat. Welcome.
All right, guys. So let's go into the self-care now. As we were saying earlier, when I say to my clients, self-compassion and self-care, the first thing that comes to mind when I say self-care is spa day, $25,000, or a weekend in a villa on the North Coast. And I'm saying, no, if you have money like that, fine. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about simple little things. And here's my number one. Choose happiness. When I say to someone, choose happiness, they say, no, but I need my man to make me happy, or my children make me happy, or when my boss tells me I'm great, then I feel happy. That's not what I'm talking about. You as an individual must choose happiness because it's one thing that we have. We have that choice. Life is 10% what happens to you, okay? There are some things outside of our control, like COVID, right? But 90% of our happiness has to do with how we react to what has happened, okay? My mother, for example, loves church. She loves to go to church, and now she can't go to church. She's online. She's 84. She has adjusted. She's online, and she goes to church online. Happiness is a choice, okay, guys? So the first thing in self-care is to choose happiness. Here's another thing I want you to know, that the brain takes information from our muscles, and our facial muscles are important. If you just smile, the brain gets the message that you're okay, and it doesn't flood your body full of all the nasty hormones and chemicals that is preparing you for fight or flight. You're not really in any danger, you know. So you don't need to react like that, okay? COVID is dangerous, yes, but you don't know when you're getting it. It's not like a dog and you can run from the dog, okay? So nobody fight it until you know, right? So smile. Now you can fake it until you make it. I have a client who said, I don't like smiling now. I said, it's okay, you don't have to like smiling. Just draw your face into a smile, right? There you go. Thank you, Carla. And the brain will read it, okay? And then allow yourself to feel too often, as soon as an emotion comes up, we push it down, suppress it. Okay, then repression occurs and then it bubbles up at some other time. Okay, put your own needs first is a part of the self-compassion thing we were talking about recently. Okay, many of us struggle with putting ourselves first, especially if we have children. But what do I mean by that? If you are not well, you are of no use to the people around you. And that's what I mean when I say put yourself first. Okay? You're going to look at the things that trigger your unhappiness and move yourself away from it if you can. I have clients who COVID has been a blessing for them because the husband who they hated or the wife who they hated because of abuse or whatever, they have had the opportunity now to break up that situation. Okay? And then we talked about the self-compassion already. Let me just, I want to skip through because we don't have too much time. We can go back to some of them. Here's a big one, guys. Set and enforce your own boundaries. Okay? Boundaries are essential when it comes to emotional self-care. If you have a problem putting yourself first, then maybe you also struggle with enforcing boundaries and saying no. There are many people who cannot say no. My mother-in-law asked me if Kara go to shopping tomorrow. Is you that, Carla?
I am the shambala. Shangwan.
Practice it, people. Practice it. Learn how to say no without feeling anxious. It is your right. Set your boundaries and enforce them, okay? Some people may not like that, but that's okay. Sometimes that helps you to get rid of the people who don't like that, okay? So if something is harmful to you emotionally, or even just practically, like, can you take me to the airport? And it's inconvenient for you, say no. I'm really sorry. I can help you with $3,000 towards a taxi fare, or just no, okay? And then here's another big one for me now. And I know plenty are going to vex with me. Do not complain or vent. How you feel about that, Carla?
Me can manage what you say, but 30% of me want vex.
Do not complain or vent. Complaining and venting feels good in the moment, but they keep you stuck in problem mode, not solution mode. Okay? Stop it. What if you have a problem, say to somebody, listen, I have this problem and I need some help. When the person gives you the information, take it and run with it. Don't come back the next day again with the same old problem. Nobody wants to hear it, number one, but most importantly, part of your self-care is moving towards solution mode rather than staying stuck in the complaining and the venting mode, right? And you do it because it feels good. People do things because it feels good, right? You feel vindicated. You feel like at least somebody's listening to me. Do not do it, okay? You want me to do some more, Kamla, or you want to go on and we can proceed?
We definitely want some more, but first I want to get some of the feedback from our
Yes,
family on the
sure, go
platform
ahead.
and also to go a little bit deeper. So I hear Vivian Esme responding, and she says that word no is the least used word in my vocabulary. The honesty. Samantha says
Yes.
so true. I saw another comment I wanted to pull up. Tiffany says that means I'm on a good path. I am choosing happiness and smiling a whole lot more. I love it.
Good.
I have a couple of questions which we'll come back to shortly. We'll take them at the end with the others. So let me just unpack some of what Pat said, because Carla said Pat came with a word, a whole word tonight. So let's talk about the boundary setting piece, Pat. Right?
Yes, Pat, about it.
I have a feeling in my spirit that that one is a powerful shifting one for many of us, because guess what? The topic for this evening's convo is, the second part says the topic is we made it. And the second says lessons from surviving 2020. Because none of us as panelists and as the creators of this space have the intention to just show up here tonight and just talk about how COVID did rough, and then we press end meeting and we go back to complaining until December 31. The idea is to reflect and come to a positive understanding of what we can do better because we don't only want to make it to the end of 2020, we want to keep on making it. So we want to just put that out there that we're talking solutions. And the boundary setting piece, Pat and Carla, is so crucial for life and living just generally. I have clients, I saw somebody say it in the chat, that they have taken a new motto where they don't complain about anything that they can change. And I have clients who will come to me for coaching or for therapy. And when you hear the frustration, it's so loud. And when I listen with my trained ears, I hear someone who's just basically afraid of telling somebody, stop doing this to me, because of the guilt that comes from it. So let's talk about where that comes from, Carla. Who teach us that no is not appropriate?
Oh, mercy. We learn it so many places, Kamala. So many of us, and so many of us come from a model of sacrificial love, right? The depth of my love for you is determined by how much I will sacrifice for you. And we, in particular, we learn this from our parents, and our mothers are very good at narrating to us all of the sacrifices they have made for us,
because they love us,
what we should do because they have loved us in this way. And so a lot of us come to equate love with sacrifice, right? But then there is also a way that I think we make people who choose themselves into demons. Oh, them mercenary, them not care about other people, them all for themselves, want all, lose all. And so we come to this place where we feel like if I want anything for myself, if I choose myself at all, then I'm going to, there, it's almost as though we're in a binary. Either you give everything away and you are completely selfless, or you are selfish and you're a horrible person, and we don't look at what exists in the in between. So and I mean, some of it does come back to some of our Christian teaching around, the meek shall inherit the earth, and it's blessed are those who suffer, and all of those types of things. And so we equate suffering with integrity, we equate suffering with being a good person, and some of us are just afraid. And when I see a lot of people refusing the no, you see the no, I look them in their face, they need to just look on look the no in the face and get to spot it. A lot of us refuse the no when we know that giving the no is going to put us in a position of power. We will yes ourselves to smallness, all the way to smallness. We will yes ourselves to burnout, frustration, fatigue, and smallness, because those things feel more comfortable and safe and familiar for us. And so, and a part of it is that we're also afraid of power, because we don't have many models of people who have inhabited power in a way that looks decent and ethical, right? So I mean, we learn sacrificial love from some of the proverbs, from some of the things our parents say to us, from the models that our parents have given to us, and we don't quite know yet that I can love you and choose myself at the same time. And actually, if I want to love you sustainably, if I want to love you in a way that is not going to turn into resentment, the better thing for me to do is to choose myself. Whilst I am loving you should be a part of choosing myself. The two should not be at odds.
Carla, dot more. What you just said, you said that we can yes ourselves into smallness.
All the way to
That
smallness.
should be on a t-shirt, on a mug, on a bracelet, on a billboard.
That means that.
Let me write it down, Kamala, and then we're gonna make the
Take
shirt.
some money and thank me after with a check.
Of course,
with a
sis.
check, okay?
Of course, sis.
Because it is so profoundly put. It's so simple, but yet it is, I believe, a crucial piece of the puzzle in living a more well life. And we're not talking about in pandemic, we're talking about beyond life, for as long as we're blessed to live it. Right. And it's so true. And I just want to interject another piece of the puzzle that can kind of have a gendered bias to this whole thing of niceness and not being willing to say no. For those people who identify as women in particular, we are taught that nice girls say yes. Yeah. We are taught that niceness should be a huge part of our personas. Yeah. And so when we grow up from girls into women, and we exist as professionals, as partners, romantic partners, as mothers, as aunties, as business people, it isn't an easy transition to make, to come into being able to say no when we need to say no. So for all of you who are here, go ahead, please, Pat.
Can I just add to that a little bit, though? Yes. One of the reasons that especially young people don't like to say no is, you ever hear that term, bye friend?
Yes.
Yes. We are so afraid of being alone
Yeah.
that we will sacrifice ourselves for the sake of company, even if that company is not healthy for you.
Yes.
And so this is why it is so important to be able to say no. When you know that you're being taken advantage of, you should be able to say no. But
Yeah.
when you're desperate for external validation, I teach my clients all the time, external validation is the icing on the cake. We have to bake that cake ourselves.
Come on
Okay,
now.
so if you get some icing, okay, great. But the cake, the meal, you must bake yourself. And that's the biggest problem, especially with young people, but also with older people, is this need to have somebody in their
Like us.
lives.
Yes. And let me tell you something. I remember somebody, I think it's Carla referenced it earlier, about the fact that perhaps the people that, no, it was you, Pat, perhaps the persons who are not okay with us saying no, perhaps should
Mhm.
not be in our lives in the long term
They
anyway.
should
It's
be
not
as well.
sustainable.
Yes,
These are some hard, big people truths, but I
of
think
course.
we're dropping them tonight so that we can start to chew on them as we're creating vision board in another couple of weeks in the J and Life class series. And
Mhm.
as we're
Hmm.
looking towards hopefully a brighter 2021, these are the
Yeah.
things that will make it a brighter 2021, whether pandemic keeping outside or not,
Mhm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I want to talk a little bit more about that piece of what happens when people start to enforce boundaries, because we don't want to be accused, Pat, as the
Hmm.
professionals who are telling people, enforce your boundaries, say no, and not tell people the flip side of that, to have them be prepared. The reality is that people benefit from our lack of boundaries, even the people who we like.
Yes,
They have an advantage when they can come to Kamala and Kamala always says yes.
that's it.
When we leave life class and we start to practice, right, the enforcement of boundaries, and we start to say, I'm not able to show up for that at 8 o'clock. 6:30 is the best time for
Better
me,
for
and
me.
you hold firm
Yeah.
to that. People will vex, and people will
Hmm.
accuse you of going in like you're better than, going like you get rich
Hmm.
and switch, etc.
Yeah.
Question will have to come down now, Carla, to whether or not you are okay enough to
You
not
have
let
to.
that deter you from your
Yes.
self-care.
Yes. Oh, listen, I am so glad that you brought that up because, yes, because you have decided to enforce your boundaries doesn't mean that everybody around you has to be happy with it. And I think that's a big mistake that we make when we start to practice self-care, when we start to get clearer about who we are, we start to chart a path for our lives that feels fulfilling for us. We feel like it's the movie. So I am now clear. I've had my aha moment, and now everything around me is going to fall in line to keep me skipping through the daisies. Baby, no. Like after your aha moment is the reckoning, because
Yes,
now is where this new sort of light that you have is gonna let you know who is going forward with you, and
and
it's
who is
going to
not.
shine and who is not, right? And it's going to be a cutting and a clearing. And so the first part of your journey towards yourself may feel like loss, and it may feel like loneliness because some of the people have to go. And the thing is, you can't keep everybody. You can't. You absolutely cannot keep every single person in your life. You don't have energy. And people who start to move further and further into their career will tell you this. My friendships have streamlined. May have four solid friends when we work with, and that is it. Me used to have 15, may have four now, right? You can't keep everybody. It's just a matter of hours in a day. You don't have to keep everybody, and it's not an indictment on your character when people leave you. People will leave your life, they will exit your life, and be okay with understanding you left them. And the fact that you left them doesn't mean that you're abandoning them. It doesn't mean that you get rich and switch. There's a way that we have all of these phrases that are so unkind to people who have changed. And automatically, when a person changes, we feel that they feel like they're better than us. No, but, and Kamala, I have to say it, honey, when you are walking in your light, it is going to show up the shadows in other people. That's what light does. Light delineates darkness, right?
Wow.
Hmm.
Light delineates darkness. You will understand a person's darkness when they are in the presence of your light. And if you are light, that is what you're going to do. The only way for you to not do that is to go back into the darkness, and that not serving nobody.
Nobody at all
It
benefits.
not serve nobody. So yes, When you start to practice excellence, when you start to practice deep, soul deep self-love, people who are not doing that will feel away because they will know it is something they are also capable of, that they are not doing. They will feel that they have let themselves down. They will feel that they have failed. You have not done that to them. That is their interpretation of your light. That's not your job. Keep shining.
So now, I think we need to compile a book of life class.
Because Carla, she have the little gems, you know, she needs to sit down, document those gems.
Because I see one of my BFFs in the comments, Sherry Ann says, "Shalalalala, Carla."
Carla always draw me out. She always draw me out.
It's my job, Carla. I live for this, right? Might I just interject here? And I think maybe, Pat, I might be preempting another one of your self-care tips, and tell me if I am.
Yes.
Attached to this issue of being able to say no is something that we don't speak of a lot also, is speaking up, being assertive.
Yes.
Just generally speaking.
Yes.
I have heard so many conflicts that have stemmed for years. And this was triggered by someone's comment. I think it was Novia, I believe. Let me just see if I'm telling lies on Novia. Michelle, sorry, Novia. Michelle says it's not always possible to move yourself away from triggers. There are people in the workplace, for example. What about strategies to deal with this? And immediately what came to mind is how many of us approach conflict in a very extremist way. So either we say zero because, we don't want to tell the people them anything dark. So we say nothing, or we go on the flip side and tell them about their parents and their lineage.
Right.
What about the healthy middle ground of being able to speak on topic, speak on the issue, and not disrespect anyone or go off topic? Many of us are not very skilled in navigating that middle area. And so we constantly say nothing, and we tell ourselves that I don't want to create a problem, I don't want to burn down the office, etc. But we're really not speaking up. Pat, what are your thoughts on that?
Right. So nobody wants to make waves. Nobody wants to be the bad guy. It goes back again to needing to be liked, needing to be appreciated, all of that. And that is good, but not at the expense of yourself. When you're losing yourself to fit in, or just to make somebody comfortable rather than uncomfortable, you're not doing yourself any service. Okay. There's a huge difference between assertiveness and aggression.
Yes.
And the middle ground, as you say, is where we need to find ourselves, okay? So we get the trigger and the emotion comes. We can't do anything about that. That's our protective mechanism. But how we respond is so very important. And that is a whole session by itself. Emotional intelligence is a whole session by itself. But the first thing I have to tell you is that when you get that trigger, especially at work, because you're at work for 8 hours of the day, and you're working and sometimes more, right? And you're working very closely with people. So you're going to get triggered very often, okay? First thing you do is just stop. Just stop. So somebody says something to you and it pisses you off, and your first reaction, what is that girl, man? How she think she a chat to? Don't need to go there. Just stop. And if you stop for a minute, it allows your brain to calm down a little bit, and so that you can think and then you can respond rather than react. Because most of us react because that instantaneous reaction is sweet, When you tell somebody about them parts, it feels nice. It doesn't serve the purpose of advancing ourselves. Okay? This is why most partners will tell you, I can't stand when my wife come home or when my husband come home, because there's this constant complaining about Mary and when Mary say and how the boss treat her bad and all of that, right? People have not learned how to assert themselves without being aggressive. So that's really the thing about assertion.
Absolutely. And because we love practicality in this space, it's a class. I want to share some of what I have been, I guess, coming across and practicing in my own journey with maintaining healthy boundaries. Some of the traps that we sometimes fall in, for example, Pat, somebody asked you to do something way down in March of 2021. And you don't really want to do it now, but we tell ourselves, so wait far, maybe my feelings will change. And sometimes we quickly commit. So a strategy I have used recently is to say to someone, let me just take a deep breath when I'm asked and say, let me check my calendar, let me think about that and come back to you. Because sometimes the pressure in the moment to be nice and to see helpful can have us locking ourselves into things that the days will eventually come, right? The
That's
commitment will come one day.
this
So
is
let's
it.
just practice stepping back, taking a deep breath, and being able
Mm-hmm.
to say, let me
Let
come
me
back to
get
you.
back to you. Absolutely. The same thing happens with fees, Kamala. I'm sure you find that. I've been working with a company and I've been using these fees. But because I've been working with them for a while, so you can't do something for me, you can't cut it down a little bit, you know? And your inclination is to say, sure, because these are people who you have a good relationship with and so on. But when you go back and look at what you have to do, the preparation, the transportation, this, you really shouldn't have said yes to that thing, you know? So just remember, guys, just stop for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Just that pause will let the logical brain click in and you'll be able to respond appropriately. Because when you respond like this, that's your emotional brain responding. You know? That's the I want to be nice brain, right?
Yes, yes,
Not taking you anywhere. And
yes.
you're actually being taken advantage of. If you think of it like that, you know, you will be able to say no because you're being taken advantage of. Sometimes the request is so unreasonable and the person making the request knows it's unreasonable, but you're nice. So she's going to say yes, you
And they
know?
will keep coming back, is the point as well. So,
Yes, yes.
so now I want to pass in Carla box and in Pat's box to ask you personally, what are some of the most used self-care strategies in your toolkit, in your wellness box? What do you draw from most often, especially these days?
Mhm. You want me
So
to go, Carla?
Let
I
me
can
take
go.
Carla first. Go ahead, Carla.
Mhm.
Um, so some of the set hold on, because I had made little notes, you know. Well, first of all, one of the actually coming out of what y'all just said, one of the most important self-care strategies that I use is to remind myself that there are things that are more important than being nice, than being considered nice. Because
Mhm.
for me, nice became a trap, right? It was always, I would say, it's important for people to have a positive experience of me. But in reality, what I was saying is, them must always walk away feeling like them did win. And I'm like,
Mhm.
and if they won, then who lost this? Right? And so, like, to take that breath in a moment and go, what's most important in this moment? Because if I do this, I may not be healthy. I may feel stressed. I may be going to work on this job and cannot even gas the car because I have so undercharged for my services. And
Miss.
that's going to impact my health. What is important is for me to feel good inside of my life. And so, like for me, one of the big self care things has been asking myself, what do you want? I watched this thing that Deepak Chopra's daughter did, right? And she said that
Mhm.
he says he meditates, and at the end of meditation, he says, who am I? What do I want? And how can I be of service? These are the three questions that he asks himself again and again and again. Who am I? What do I want? And how can I be of service? And you see that question of who am I and what do I want? The answer will change second by second by second by second. And so sometimes when I am faced with a decision, I ask myself, what do I want? And sometimes the answer will come up and it will sound bizarre. I don't want them to think I'm mean. Okay, but you're not mean. So if you understand that you're not mean, what do you want? Actually, I want to say no because I don't want to work on Saturday. Okay,
Mhm.
well, then you understand that you have to say no. The other thing that is big in my self care kit right now is affirming myself and affirming that I'm okay the way that I am. There's a way that it started to feel like I was always reaching for myself. Who I was now was never good enough, it was never worthy enough. And so there was always some top up that I needed to add on to be okay with myself. And so a good amount of what I've been doing is just affirming myself in every moment, whenever I encounter something new, whenever I encounter something that makes me feel insecure. It's okay for you to be who you are. You are worthy just the way you are. You have value the way you are. And the third thing for me has been taking care of my body. And if there are any fat people in here, I want to say this: I'm taking care of my body, and it is not centered around becoming skinny. Because I think for larger bodied people, we think that all of the care we devote to our body must be to make it
Change
smaller,
it.
to
Mhm.
change it. So I need to be on a diet, and I need to be exercising, and I need to be all of those things. And I'm like, when last you just massage your foot then? When last
Mhm.
you just rub your body? When last have you fed yourself something that was healthy for you because you thought your body deserved health versus
Right.
I'm replacing it with something that I think is going to let me gain weight. And so a good amount of my self-care and coming to that understanding that I'm worthy has been reimagining my relationship with my body and to treat my body as though it is already good. And
Ooh.
because it is already good, it is deserving of good things, not for the purposes of changing it, but for the purposes of sustaining it.
Let me tell you something. It is already good. Carlo, just put my name in the foreword. That's what they call it, the foreword
Yes,
of the book. Yeah, I just give me like 2% royalty. I'll be happy. I'm
I'm on
content.
it. I'm on it, girl.
You know, so many gems. When it comes to life class, we know what we're getting.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
based on what
Yes.
Pat shared and based on what Carla shared, what
Mhm.
I am distilling out of it is that underlying relationship with self.
Yeah.
Self.
And every time, I remember those of you who are from season one, just raise your hand. If you were a regular attendee in season one, just put your hands up because many of you would have heard us talk so much about the inner work. Like we rinsed that out on season one. The inner work is so crucial in every space that we occupy,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm hearing about worthiness, as Carla put it so beautifully. I'm hearing Pat talk about valuing yourself. And it's so interesting that money denotes value. And so when we charge for our services, it's a reflection of what we think we are worth. It's so intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
And our relationship with money is a whole nother life class. So we'll come to that. But I feel as though in how we charge and in how we're nervous about asking for increases
Oof.
for what we render, there's so
Yeah.
much to unpack there.
Yes. Yes.
So before we go any deeper into the service, there were
Mhm.
several questions from before, and there was an attendee who had their hand up from the get-go of this segment. So let me just scroll up and see if I can find the question that we want for our experts this evening to answer. I remember someone asking about having a child who has become clingy. And there's so many comments which I love, so please forgive me as I am scrolling. And if any of the panelists see, just please call it out for me.
I remember it too, you know. I
Yes.
remember it too. Okay. Hi, it's Carbeth. Hi, I'm a single parent. I have a son who has become very clingy and crying every time I have to work. It's frustrating. How can I help him cope?
So Pat, I'm throwing to you first as
Sure.
therapist and as parent.
Sure. Sure. Okay. If it's very difficult when I can't talk to the person, but if the child was not clingy
Well,
before,
Pat, hold a second. Let's get Carbeth on micro, on stage. We can do that.
great. That'd be
Carbeth,
great.
we're going to allow you to unmute and for you to be able to engage with the fabulous and powerful Pat. Carbeth, has our tech team found you?
Evening.
Good
Good
evening.
evening, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yes,
Hey, Carmen.
I've been listening and the discussion so far is very interesting. Yes, my son, he was not clingy before. Love
Okay.
to
How old is he? How old is he?
be.
How old is he?
He's 7.
7 years old. Okay. Let me tell you something. First of all, the age between 6, 7, 8 is
Mhm.
when a child is most prone to trauma. And COVID is traumatic.
That is
You're
true.
asking a child to wear a mask. He's listening to the radio and the TV. People are dying around him. He's seeing images of people being intubated. Between 6, 7, 8, that sort of age, he's prone to trauma. Okay. Now, some children are tough and resilient and they will get through it. Your son is probably just somebody very sensitive. Now, when you say clingy, what do you mean? He wants to sleep in the bed with you and hubby?
No, man, he wants me to stay home and not go to work.
Okay, now I can't get into your business because this is something public, but you have to also find out, is something happening at home where he wants you to be home? There's some, it's very difficult to do a session
Online
on you
can
understand? But
be.
if it's just a matter of him wanting you to be home because he has gotten used to you being home, then you're going to have to wean him, right? But it could also be something bigger than that. So it's very important when children start to show you signs, they can't articulate like adults, right? So they show you signs. When your child shows you a sign, delve into it, find out what the problem is. What has he said to you?
I think it's a matter that because of my job, I work a lot, sometimes on weekends, so I'm not home as often.
Mm-hmm.
And normally would have gone to school, so there is
Right,
no school. So now I have to take him to a daycare. So he
right.
does online classes from there. So basically, a stranger is helping him with classes.
Okay, so it's a little bit of adjustment disorder that's going on there. Okay, he's taken out of his normal pattern and put into a new pattern, and he's not coping well with it.
No, he's struggling a little bit.
Yes, yes. So you just have to be patient with him and talk to him. Try to hear what he's saying.
Right. So what I've decided to do is to cut back on some of my hours and try to spend more time with him on the weekends. So
Yes, yes, it's very important. You have to make time for yourself and your children, you know.
right. So
Even 10 minutes, if it's even 15 minutes, but you have to make time for them, for your partner, and for yourself.
right.
Something has got to give.
True.
At age 7, though, please pay attention to him to find
Right.
out what his fears are, because this is stemming from fear, you know. He's fearful of something.
Right. I've actually stopped allowing them to watch the news and because so many things coming out and everything is just COVID, COVID, COVID. So I
Of
think that's
course.
overwhelming sometimes.
Of course. And you can ask him directly. You know, don't be afraid to ask them. Sweetheart, what is worrying? What are you afraid of? Is it all these people in masks? Can you imagine when you're a little person 3 feet tall and you're seeing all these people around the place with masks? It's kind of scary. Some of the masks them ugly too, you know. So you have to ask him questions because he's not able to articulate.
Right.
Okay?
Thank you so much, Arbet. We appreciate it. Yes, now we send you off with lots of love to undertake this piece of the journey of parenting.
That's a big job.
And
Parenting is a big job, man.
yes, thank you so much. I just want to add to that too, that in many ways the adults are we're the ones who model for the children what a
Right.
healthy response should look like. And so sometimes it may be helpful for the children when we're talking to them to also share that, well, baby, I'm afraid too, or I'm uncertain too. It's okay to be afraid. Let's talk about it,
Right,
because
right.
sometimes they may feel accused if we're asking them, or guilty if we're asking them, do you feel afraid? They may feel like
Mm-hmm.
we're saying something is wrong with them. So when we model the fact that adults and human beings have different
Yes.
emotions, including fear, it makes it easier for them to open up also.
Yeah.
Be careful though. Be sure that the kid knows that you, mommy, even though you work a lot and you're not there a lot, you're always there. Meaning he can always come to you, he can always share with you, that sort of thing, you know. So it's good to be vulnerable and show them how you respond when you're afraid. But a kid needs to know that the mother or the father is
Yes.
there.
Yes. Thank you for that, Pat. We have a question. I'd love to invite Michelle Walker to come on micro and to share her question with our panelists. Are you open to that, Michelle? Let's hand you a mic and welcome you on the stage. Can we find her?
Okay. Hello.
Hi, Michelle. Welcome to the space.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. Okay. Where's my question? um, it was basically a situation. The question is, what about situations where there is a clear power imbalance? How do you do self-care when you're not being nice, but you're basically dealing with unreasonable requirements where the choice is do what you're being asked to do or hit the road? Because I suspect that is a reality that many persons are facing today,
Mhm.
and where there is a high unemployment situation. So it's a greater risk.
Excellent question, Michelle, and thank you for raising it. And I'm going to ask both panelists to respond. Let me start again with Pat, and then we'll
Yeah.
jump to Carla.
That power imbalance thing is such a huge problem. Okay, it can happen at work, which is what I think she's referring to, the work situation, because your livelihood depends on how you tread in that space, okay? When it's a partner and you're dependent on the partner, it's also very difficult, right? But it's not impossible. So what we're saying to you is, in a space where you have to be assertive, you have to get the help that you need. Now, in a case like work, you have to be very careful, right? You don't want to get all bravado and put yourself out there and then you lose your jobs, right? Get the help that you need. If your company offers an EAP, go and talk to a counselor. This is my situation. I'm working for this person and this person is really very difficult. And my self-esteem is going down because of the way he or she talks to me. Say what the problem is, right? That counselor can help you to be assertive without being aggressive and help you to navigate that space carefully so you don't lose your job, right? So but it's very tricky when it comes to the job situation, but you cannot allow yourself to be a doormat. So get the help that you will need. Sometimes HR will help, but you must know how effective your HR is, you know? Is that what you're asking? Does that answer your question?
It answers the question, right? It answers it in a way, but I was thinking of a situation where, let's say you can't rely on it. It's an organizational wide issue, and you can't rely on HR. So, what
well, look here. The
strategies
first
that you
thing,
can?
sweetheart, you ever hear about accepting the things that you cannot change?
Oh yes.
Yes. When you're working in an organization and that's just the way it is, and you alone, are you the only person having the problem? If it's you alone
No,
having the problem could
no,
be you, you know.
no.
Everybody's having the problem, right, right. So in that situation, no, you come to work and you drink the milk and nobody count the cow. You stay in that situation until you can do better. And while you're in that situation, you're going to choose to be happy. You're going to smile. You're going to set the boundaries that you can set. So say, for example, you're supposed to work from 8 until 5, and this person is asking you to work from 8 until 8 every day. You can set that boundary. You can't lose your job for that because you've signed a contract that says 8 to 5. Now, occasionally you can work 8 to 8 if the need arises, but it can't be all the time. So there are going to be boundaries that you can set. They might not necessarily be all the boundaries that you want to set, but you have to work with the situation that you're in until you can do better.
I have a clarifying
But
question
while you're in it,
for Michelle.
Yeah, and I have something to add when you're done,
yeah.
Sure.
Kamala.
So my clarifying question, I want to get a better understanding of the situation, Michelle. Is it a case where you feel that it's a policy issue that is oppressive to members of the team? Or is it a specific issue with maybe personality dynamics with a member of management or several members of management? What would you say kind of broadly defines the specific issue?
I don't, because we're a small society, I don't want to be too.
I know that's the thing with therapy. You need the
Yeah,
confidentiality and the anonymity, you
yeah.
know?
I don't really.
Understood.
We're too small a society. I don't want to be, and I'm actually, fortunately, I'm not asking for me anymore. Yeah, but it's I'm just highlighting it's a challenge that many persons, I think, can face, and many women can face in the environment, and it could be policy, but I would suggest it's more a personality issue than a policy one, because, for example, if you have clear policy directives that go in one direction, but they are not being implemented because personalities are pushing them in another direction.
Understood. Thank you so much, Michelle. Carla?
Yeah, I'd love to add to that. So, to that, what I would add is that advocacy is a type of self care. And when I talk about advocacy, I mean advocating for yourself and the people around you. I think Pat asked a question before: are you the only person that's having this issue? Because if the issue is institution wide, if the issue is there are multiple people facing it, then there is an opportunity for you to come together if it's something that you want to do. But also advocating for yourself for a healthier work environment is all that is a type of self-care. The other thing that I want to say is difficult is not impossible. Low employment is not the same as no employment. So it's not easy to jump out of a job. And in particular now, it is difficult to jump out of a job, but it's not impossible, because I'm sure many of us know people who have started new jobs, who have left jobs during COVID and somehow seem to be making it out, right? It's not easy. But I think sometimes remembering, if I'm working in an institution where the policy of the institution is toxic, then it might seem that things might not actually get better, right? And in that case, you might want to consider, do you want to continue on with this institution? If you actually feel so strongly that the institution is, the all of the issues are kind of just like this, to the point where the workers are in that bad of a position, then one of the things you can do to care for yourself is start planning your exit. And a part of empowering yourself to do that is to remind yourself that there are options and opportunities out there. Don't cause all the people that might left the work tomorrow, but also don't be afraid to send your resume. Don't be afraid to actually tweak your resume. Don't be afraid to look at your skill set and think, where else can I work? Sometimes, especially when we've been working in one field for a while, we can get into this idea that, oh, I can only work here, or there's no position available in this type of organization, so that's nowhere for me to go. But the skill set that you have is transferable. So what is the skill set that you have? Is there another certification that you need to go after so that you become more appealing in another space? If I can look at a workspace and I can say, no, this is an institution-wide problem. Everywhere that I go in this institution, I'm going to have to deal with the same stress. Listen to yourself. Do you want to continue working like that for the rest of your life? Probably you don't. So then there is an opportunity for you to change.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Michelle, for the question. And thank you for raising into our convo the awareness that this sometimes it's not as cut and dry as it relates to self-caring, speaking up in some situations. But I think the underlying truths are still valid, meaning not every space is for us. And in a similar way, to how, getting the money from the job can feel like this is necessary for my well-being, we can sometimes have that same kind of attitude in others, in relationship spaces where it's toxic, but we feel as though, well, nobody else will come. So we also have to kind of approach it from an almost do or die mentality. Even so, first of all, am I able to wait while I'm advocating and agitating and speaking up and being assertive and not aggressive? Am I able to wait until the change comes? Am I able to be well while it is still not 100%? These are hard questions, right? And even if my advocacy creates some change, is it likely to give me the optimal level of wellness that makes this worth it for me in the long run? Because ultimately, many of us spend like 45 years employed. We're grinding on a 9 to 5 for 45 years. And we have to look at the long-term toll. Is this worth it for me? And of course, in this pandemic, many people have been doing the very powerful pivoting that we talk about, moving away from this type of space into another one to earn, and sometimes to earn well. So all we're saying is that there are always options. They might not be very sexy, but preservation of self, I think, should be prioritized above all, right? I would love to give someone with a Flow device the opportunity to win $1,000 credits. Another one from the JN group, because they're very kind over here in the JN space, right? So for all of you who missed the chance earlier, perhaps you have 2 devices, perhaps not, but for all who have a Flow device, now is your time. Are you ready? Here we go. So the numbers are 34 9382 8098 6898. And if you win it, just put a bag of exclamation points in the chat so we can celebrate with you. And while you're doing that, I want to close off this particular segment by asking Pat to open up her box to us and Carla share her business, right? Pat, for you, what have been maybe 3 of the most drawn upon self-care practices that you're using, especially in this very up in the air year of 2020?
Sure. Well, I tell you, I have never drawn on my training so much for myself as in this pandemic. I draw on my training for my clients, right? And I help them through this and I help them through that. This is the first time since I've been a practicing psychologist that I have been drawing on my training, okay? And that occurs in the workspace as well as in the home space, all right? Because when you're living with somebody who is also frustrated, you have to learn how to use the language that you're taught how to use, right? So I've become a sort of mechanical machine kind of person in my relationship so that we can live in the space together without killing each other, you know? So simple things like using I language instead of why do you always or asking questions, you know, like that. I'm drawing on my training, okay? If my husband asks me a question, I answer the question asked.
Yes, ma'am.
For example, he says to me, darling, where is the milk? Where is the milk today? And you know, all kind of questions come up because you want to answer the question with a question. But my training says you must answer the question asked. I say, it's in the fridge, darling, in the door. Problem solved. No, it's not a natural thing, you know, because you don't relate to people you love like that. But in the time of COVID, you had better, if you want harmony, you had better do that, okay? So my training was a big one. And then also just the acceptance of it. In the beginning, I had a problem with the acceptance of it. So I was fighting it, you know, like, I wonder if it's really true. And then the conspiracy theorists started coming. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not one of those people at all. But then when you have all that time on your hands, you really start to wonder, you know? So I had to get to a place where I self-talk. So I say to myself, Patricia, this is what you need to do. You are not in control anymore. You have to stop being a control freak and just let it happen because there's nothing you can do about it, you know? So acceptance was another thing that I drew on. And then my resilience. I've always been a resilient person, you know? My father died while I was studying abroad. Can you imagine you go to school and in the first semester your father dies and I have to come home? And that's when I knew I had it. Because I came home, planned the funeral, executed the funeral, did online tests, and went back to Louisiana and finished my course. In the middle of that, my sister died. So I know how strong I am and I just drew on that strength. And also helping other people. Because even though people might not be your clients, there are people who will call you. Pat me mad, you know, almost do, you know? Or somebody will call me and say, if Flo ever lock down the thing one more time, I'm going mad. Or if Digicel break down my phone, I'm going mad. And I said, actually, you won't get mad. You'll manage, you can get through this. So helping others also helped me to cope in this time.
Perfectly said. And you know, on my end, let me tell you, I so love Pat's transparency because this is the time when all of the things that you're telling the client, you better tell yourself and you better do it. Because I have been talking self-care for how much years now, and I've never had to practice self-care as much as I have had to for this year. So let me tell you, I had to get those sneakers together and the walking tights and move my body intentionally because sometimes if you fall off the cliff and maybe 5 days or 7 days or 10 days pass and you don't do anything physically intentional,
yes.
effects.
Absolutely.
I loved how Pat started off talking about doing nothing, which is her favorite thing to do. I have had to be intentionally creating space, Carla, to do sit, filch, just do nothing. Because just being alive in 2020 is work.
Yeah.
It's work. To go to the supermarket right now is more work than it's ever been before in life.
Worse if you ever forget the mask, Kamala. When you forget, hold on. Yes. Sorry about that. Staff leaving. Yeah. Worse if you forget the mask. You know how frustrating that is? You go to stop and you park way at the back. And when you reach the door, sorry, miss, you can't come without the mask, you know? Frustrations, yes.
Absolutely. So I've had to be drawing on self-care in as much as I preach it to people. I've had to be practicing the deep breathing and the progressive muscle relaxation. Close your eyes right now and just ground yourself.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I've actually been listening to the meditations and the podcast and the ebooks about how to take it down, how to still our mind, because the
Yeah.
racing of the mind is real and the
Yes.
anxiety is real. So I have become less of a hypocrite. Let me put that out there into the space. Less of a therapeutic hypocrite in this season, because what I'm preaching is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I preach more
Yeah.
passionately about it because I have to be doing it and I know they work. I
Yes.
know they work. So I
Same.
want to switch us now into our final leg of tonight's convo. I want to switch gears a little bit into more of the practical self-caring tips now.
Right.
I just mentioned a couple of them, Pat, and I'd love
Yeah.
for you to teach us maybe one or two for those who are not, for those of you who have heard it for years and say, oh, I hocus pocus that. That is some
Right.
airy fairy, what them call it? Some airy fairy kumbaya business. I want Pat to walk us through at least
Right.
one or two that we can grab and put in our toolboxes as we leave life class in another half an hour or so.
Okay. So number one, the parent who had called earlier, you have to schedule some time for rest. I'm not talking about sleep. You ain't got to sleep anyway, but schedule some time for rest. And it can just be 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be an hour. It can just be 5 minutes. I find the bathroom is the safest place. People tend to leave you alone in the toilet. You know what I mean? So you go into the bathroom, take 5 minutes, sit in a comfortable place, on the seat, on the floor, whatever, and just be still. I don't know if you guys want to participate in this little exercise. I'm
Yes,
going to ask you to be absolutely still for 30 seconds. Can you find out if they are good with that?
let me ask everyone, raise your hand if you're good with that, but I'm definitely open to practicing that. And I'm pulling up my stopwatch as we speak. Yeah, man, the hands are going up. I love this group so much. They're up for it.
Participate well. I love it.
Love every single one of our attendees. So, Pat, I'm
Yes,
going to
okay.
start the timer.
Great.
Have an instruction or
People,
just to be still?
you can focus on a spot on the wall, or you can close your eyes to block out the distractions. Whatever you do, just be still, absolutely still for 30 seconds. Go.
And that was 30 seconds, everyone.
30 seconds. How many of you were uncomfortable in that silence?
Raise your hands. Let me see the honest people in the room. Only a few.
Only a few?
Only a
Okay,
few.
very good.
14.
For some people, sitting quietly for 30, it's a short time, but sitting quietly for 30 seconds makes them so uncomfortable. The head start to wander now. I wonder what I could be doing in this time. Let me clear an email. Let me look at my WhatsApp. Learn to be still for as long as you can, but at least 30 seconds. Here's another one. It's called progressive muscle relaxation. Most of us are not aware of the parts of our body. Our scalp, for example, okay? Only when you're having a weave and you go so, you might think about the scalp, right? But otherwise you don't think about it. In progressive muscle relaxation, you're going to, in that same quiet space, focus on every inch of your body. So you can start with the scalp. You're going to become aware of the scalp and you're going to relax it. You might find that you were furrowing your brow and you didn't even know. You relax your forehead, okay? Close your eyes. Most of us only close your eyes when you're sleeping. Close your eyes. It tells the brain that you're relaxing, okay? Your cheeks, your jaw, the jaw. A lot of people clench the jaw without even realizing it, okay? So you relax the jaw. Your shoulders are usually up by your ears. You're gonna drop them. And you do that all the way through your body until you get to your feet. By the time you get to your feet, you're supposed to be really, really relaxed, okay?
Perfect.
So you practice that when you're at home, okay? The other one now is the breathing. Breathing is so important. The brain needs oxygen and sugar. please don't go out and buy sugar. I'm talking about sugar from fruits and vegetables and whatever, right? It needs oxygen and it needs sugar. But we don't breathe mindfully. We have a shallow breathing because we're getting from one place to the next, or we're thinking about something, or we're doing something. So our breathing is automatic, but it's shallow. The brain needs the respite. It needs a time when you're filling it with oxygen, okay? So I want us to practice that as well. Now, I like to tell my clients, when you master it, do 10 in, hold it for 10, and then exhale for 20. If you smoke, you can't do it. You're not going to be able to do it, right? But just as a practice exercise, start with 4 times 4 times 4, okay? So you're in for 4, in through your nose. If you breathe in through your mouth, it's going to seem like a gasp, and your brain is going to perceive it as that. So close your mouth and in through your nose for 4. Now, when you're breathing, you don't need to drop the chest and the shoulder and all of that, right? You are still. You're completely still, and you're breathing in through your nose for 4, hold it for 4, and release it for 4. Some of you might get lightheaded if you do that. Would you like to practice that?
Yes, we'd like to do the 4x4.
Okay, so let's practice that. It usually works with feet flat in the ground, hand on the legs upwards, because if you hold it down, sometimes you clench, you hold on to your knee or your keep your hands up like this, feet flat in the ground, completely relaxed, and just in. Ready? And in.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Or hold it and release it.
1, 2, 4.
Got it?
Yes.
And just practice that. You're going to be lightheaded until you get the knack of it, and you're doing yourself a real service, okay? And then the other one is meditation. Now, people call meditation hairy-fairy, and perhaps it is. I don't know. I don't meditate. But all I'm talking about is a mindful stillness, okay? And when you're meditating now, you are going to try to get all of the thoughts out of your head. And the only way to do that is to stay in the now. So staying in the now means, so when you think, Jesus, God is 8:06, I'm going to go home, you know, just stay in the now. Look at a painting on the wall, look at the fabric on the chair, something that keeps you in the now, okay? And you try and stay in the now for as long as you can, because depression is living in the past. Anxiety is living in the future. Okay, if we keep worrying about what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes, next 10 minutes, that is anxiety provoking. Okay, the only way to get peace is to be in the now. We don't appreciate the now. Okay, so that's what meditation is for me. And if you practice that and keeping your mind in the present, you will have peace. When you get home at night and you're going to sleep, you start to say, Lord have mercy, I never did a report. Lord have mercy, my boss. There's nothing you can do about it in the moment. Nothing. So leave it alone. If there's something you can do, do it, you know. But if there's nothing you can do, leave it alone. Thinking about it is not going to get it done. Okay? So just stay in the moment. When you start to think, Lord, if my father had given me some more money, or if my mother never used to beat me so much, you're living in the past. Okay, that does not serve you well. Okay, so those are some of the tips that you can. Here's another one I wanted to touch on, if I may, Camila, is I wanted to stop apologizing for being you. You know, you have some people like that. You say to them, why were you late? And instead of saying, I was late because I was in traffic, so I said, Lord have mercy, so mistake, I'm always late. And boy, stop apologizing for being who you are. Okay? Make sure you know who you are, of course. And if who you are is this person, don't let anybody else try to tell you not to be that person. It is anxiety provoking. And what we're looking for is things that bring us well-being or being well.
Absolutely. And, you know, I just want to pick up a couple of comments from our audience family. When we were doing the 30-second stillness exercise, I love the comment that Anastasia made. She said, I was good, the most peace I've had all day. Just 30 seconds.
There you go. And it was 30 seconds.
of intentional stillness. Imagine what 3 minutes can do.
Oh,
Imagine what 15
absolutely.
minutes can do to start the day and to end the day and to take a
And
break.
it
in the
costs
middle of
you
the
a
day.
cent.
Absolutely. Christine said she had people around her and that's why she was uncomfortable. But otherwise, most people were just enjoying the stillness.
And guess what,
Small
Christine?
thing.
When you're doing your stillness and people are around you, block them out. It's 30 seconds. If they think you're crazy, so what? It
So
is also a part of the self-empowerment that you can sit still for 30 seconds, even if your eyes are closed. 30 seconds. At the end, if they say to you, what were you doing? I was being still for 30 seconds, you
yes.
know? So
And
thanks for that, Christine.
Simone was honest, and I think many of us can attest to it as we're starting out on the journey of mindfully being still. She said, my
Mhm.
mind was racing. And then, almost as a counter to that, I love how Rani just run in and Rani said, remember, meditation is a practice, so it's
Yeah,
never perfect, right?
yes, absolutely.
And also, I think somebody else earlier had mentioned that, when they were still for that time, they felt an overwhelming sense of happiness. I
Yes.
feel like it's our bodies just thanking us, or beings
Thank
just thanking
you
us
for giving me a break. Yes.
for taking a break, right? So we are on the very last piece of it now, ladies of the panel. And I want for us to become clear. I want to fast in our own business now about
Mm-hmm.
what you are clear that you're not taking with you into 2021. So even though in the JN Life class coming up soon, I think in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be doing a visioning activity. We're going to be setting our intentions for the new year. What are you, Carla Moore, intentional so you're not bringing it over the threshold, God willing, of 2021?
What I'm not bringing into 2021 is I'm not bringing self abandonment and self
Wow.
betrayal
Mm,
into 2021, which is I'm no longer hurling myself into situations. I'm not asking myself how I feel while I'm there. And I'm no longer rejecting myself because of what I'm feeling. Oh, I'm feeling sad when I shouldn't. I feel jealous and I shouldn't. I feel angry and I shouldn't. And then you just kind of move away from yourself. I'm not doing that with myself anymore because I deserve my own attention more than anybody else deserves my own attention. And whatever is coming up for a reason. And so the kindest thing I can do to myself is pay attention to me. I'm not
Carla, just a
bringing.
second. You're a little bit low in volume. I'm not sure
I
if you're
wonder why. Let's
clean.
see.
I need to hear every every
Any better now?
every syllable.
um I'm not carrying accepting less than I'm worth. And what that means in a very practical sense is I'm having the money conversation. I think a lot of us struggle with that conversation. But and especially in COVID, because the fear is that if I raise it now, then they will fire me. But
Mm-hmm.
some of the dynamics and the patterns that you are setting up during this time will continue into the years with you, and so you have to be fair to yourself. And I am not carrying not listening to myself. There's a way that sometimes when yourself tells you something, you go, oh, there must just be another way to think about this. Like if I just try a little harder, I could change my mind about it. Sometimes you don't need to change your mind. Sometimes what your mind is telling you,
Think.
it's valid. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not carrying that act of just kind of ignoring myself for other people's comfort. It's not my job to make you feel comfortable around me if it's going to cost me myself. I am so valuable that nothing should cost me myself. Like I'm worth too much for that. And yeah, that's where I am for 2021.
So let's take a mindful breath and just process what Carla has shared with us in the space just now. Carla, there's so much weight to this.
Yeah.
And I love how intentional I've watched your journey, how intentional you have been about confronting some of these things. And you are using your voice to, amplify this, giving of permission to other people. And it's beautiful to watch. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I'm so struck by is how we can learn these things and don't even realize that we have adopted them. It was almost an unconscious programming of how we operate to just show up like this, to show up, as Pat mentioned, apologizing
Mhm.
already, just
Right.
to by virtue
Who
of
you are.
being, I am sorry. We're always sorry. And then
Mm-hmm.
to also the self-betrayal piece of it, you don't want to. It doesn't serve you. But the fear of losing the validation comes so loud. And then we end up contorting and bending of ourselves in order to make other people happy. And I love how you said it. If other people are winning, then somebody losing.
Yeah.
And too often, that's me. So for 2021, Carla, vision clear. And I'd love to hear from our audience, family, what are you not taking into 2021? So please, I want to read a couple of those. Patricia Oberly, what are you not bringing over the threshold?
But I tell you, one of the biggest lessons for me in this whole COVID thing, and which I will not bring into 2021, is taking things for granted. I did not realize in all of my life how many things I took for granted until COVID. It has strengthened my relationships, both romantic and just friends and family relationships, because all of a sudden I'm so grateful. I'll call somebody and say, I have nothing to say to you. I just want you to know I love you. Okay? See
I
you
love that.
tomorrow.
Yes.
Because we take a lot for granted. I was never the sort of keep in touch person. That's not me. My friends know that if I don't see you for 5 years, when I do see you, we love each other same way, right? I'm not going to take that attitude into 2021. I'm going to make more of an effort to reach out to the people in my life, and I will never take anything for granted. Small kindnesses. I was at my mother's house recently and somebody passed and gave her a lime. And my first instinct was then one lime, no, she got to do one lime. And I heard my mother say, oh my God, I was going to make some lemonade. I'm so glad you brought this. It's not true, but she's showing gratitude,
Yes.
So I am not taking this taking for granted thing into 2021.
I
And
love it.
hopefully it will also, if my children and the people around me will see that and take it on as well, so we can become a better society. There are going to be some good lessons from COVID.
Yes. Yes. So gratitude is a huge one for things that we want to take for granted. I love that.
Yeah.
Simone says she's not taking anxiety nor self-doubt. She's learning her value each day. I'm here for it all day. Cheryl says she's afraid to move around and even to go to work. So I figure Cheryl is working on that. And Nicole says frustration. And I just want to kind of share this beautiful affirmation from Michelle Earl. She says, this session, self-care session, surpassed my expectation. It has been excellent. What a beautiful something. First time, and we'll definitely join again. We have a repeat visitor in the making. Carla, she says, you are over the roof. Listen, I've never heard it put that way before, but I like it. You're over the roof, girl. I have not heard myself laugh in a long time. Look at that.
Thank you.
Let me read another one. Rani says, mindfulness also involves acceptance, meaning that we pay attention to our thoughts and feelings without judging them, absolutely. Without believing, for instance, that there is a right or wrong way to think or feel in a particular moment. And Carla referenced this just now. Take time to know yourself inwardly and outwardly in real time. And there was another one I wanted to pull up. Claudine shared a poem that I think we can introduce to, or at least a couple lines of it to our viewing audience. It's called No More Smalling Up of Me, and it's by Jean Wilson. And she says that's her mantra. No more meekly saying yes when my heart is screaming no. No more taming of my feelings so my power won't show. No more hiding my exuberance from disapproving eyes. No more watering down myself so my spirit won't rise. Life class never often nice for people. Listen.
Never often nice, but it nice like rice.
I love it till I can't love it no more. Patricia says, I stayed back in office to make sure I was all in. And Nicole says, I always enjoy the session. This session gave me much hope. Daphne is affirming intentionally, I will stop apologizing for being me. I love it till I can't love it no more. All right. So at this juncture, I would love to offer another member of the audience the chance to win something from the very generous and giving JN Group family. And now we're going to have to work harder for this one because I'm going to ask you, these are the instructions. And Pat, you are the chief judge. Carla, you are the secondary judge. The first person to, in one post, jot down 4 of the self-care strategies that Patricia shared. 4. The first person to do it in one comment will be the winner. All right. Now let's just see if we can get this going, because people want to be first, you know, and only dropping one thing in the chat. So let's see what will happen. All right. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name. Your last name is Smythe. I don't even want to do injustice to your first name. This person says that this is my first session and I will definitely be, I've learned so much. Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Boy, coming like them remember the choose happiness one more than anything else, but
it's very important. They don't take anything away. At least that one is important, and smiling.
Carla, you have quick eyes on these platforms. Please help me to figure out who is the one.
Oh, yes.
Who have all of them. I think Novia.
The first person that dropped 4?
4?
2, 3. No, I think the first person to drop 4 was Marsha.
Marsha.
I feel so.
And then just read them for Pat to make sure that Marsha.
So Marsha said, choose happiness, allow yourself to feel, learn to say no, don't complain or vent.
Oh, bravo! Excellent! And those are my top ones, you know. So this girl is really on point. Nice.
Get it, Marsha.
Give her the prize, Kamala.
I'm not able to see Marsha's surname. Can somebody help me?
Oh, Marsha again. Yes.
Marsha Denny. Let me tell you something about Marsha Denny. Marsha's an institution in the JN Life class. And she's always winning something. So Marsha, thank you for coming back in winning ways. I am so happy to see you, and I'm so happy that you won. And Novia, please come back next time so you get it the next time. All right?
Yeah.
So Marsha, we're going to ask you to send an email to, who should I ask her to send it to now? We want to get your information off air. So we're going to ask Marsha to send a message to the JN member ombudsman. Marsha, you know, so you can send me the information, right? But I want to be professional on the thing. I want to ask you to send the email to myjncircle@jngroup.com. Thank you, Celia. So that we can take your information, we can contact you for you to win your fabulous token from JN Life class number 1, and she wins something. Thank you so much. And now we're going to launch our poll to see how you guys, we're going to do a checkout. How have you been doing? What are your intentions? How have you been processing as we have been talking through for the last almost 2 hours to get a sense of how valuable the class has been? So here goes 5 questions, and it has been launched. So please engage and share your feelings. All right, share your thoughts. And please remember that come next week, Wednesday at 6:30 p.m., we meet same place for another riveting class in the Life class series. It's going to be amazing. Bring a friend. If this impacted you positively, bring a friend. Let's do it again next week. And just big up the JN group all over social media so people can know that there's value happening over here, especially as we're closing out this year, right? I want to share a little bit about what I'm not taking into 2021.
Yes.
Similar to Carla, I am learning because it's a journey. I'm learning about not dimming shine. And it's a very treacherous journey because no one wants to be, quote unquote, or feel like they're the source of someone that's feeling uncomfortable. And so it's almost like sometimes I'm asking permission to do all the things that are in my passionate heart to do, because what will they think? They're wondering, who does she think she is? And I'm intentionally kind of zoning out that noise and moving into the new year, giving myself more permission to be great. And also grace to not always be great, because we're working in progress. You get what I mean? So while I'm aspiring, I want to give myself more permission to not have it perfect and not shrink back because, oh my God, it wasn't 100% excellent or I made a mistake. We all make mistakes. So grace for me, grace to be great, and grace to just be are 2 of the things I'm really setting out to maximize in the new year, all things being equal.
Me love it.
Awesome.
Me love it.
And let me see our poll results. Are we ready to launch the results of the poll now? To hear what the fabulous people have shared. You are so welcome. So many thank yous in the chat. Cheryl says, every experience is an opportunity to grow, and I'm willing to get the help I need to start the process of positive change. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. All right. So let's hear what the audience family had to say. On the issue of my mood has improved since the start of this live class, 63% of you said yes, and 35% of you said somewhat. We'll take it. We're grateful. And we're glad to have been a part of that upward shift. As Carla said, upful. Question 2 is, I received what I expected from this class. 52% of you said totally, and 48% of you said mostly. Nobody said not at all. That's good. That's a good look. And on question 3, I now better understand the toll the pandemic has been taking on me. 31% of you said sort of, 68% of you said yes, and one respondent, I think, said no. And the final question, well, the second to last question is, I feel hopeful about having a better 2021. 85% of you said yes, and 15% said sort of. We'll take that too. And finally, I received information which can help me to better navigate this pandemic. 89% of you said yes, and 11% of you said sort of. And we're just getting started. So please give us some grace, because we're coming back next week, and the week after that, and the week after that into January, so that we can continue to give you more resources. So thank you so much to everyone. Tiffany says, first time will definitely be back. Michelle says, thank you, this was wonderful. My first class, signing up for more. And as we are about to wrap it up, I wanted to see if I missed any powerful shares in the comment section, but I also want to kind of point us to that area of life in terms of our relationships, how we relate to other people. Because one thing the pandemic has taught me is how interconnected we all are as people. You can imagine there was a patient 0, and that patient, because of their movements, that patient has impacted all of our lives for the last 9 months. So we all affect each other. We all depend on each other in different ways. What are some of the key takeaways and lessons for us, Carla and Pat, in terms of relationships, romantic and otherwise, that we can kind of zone in this pandemic situation? Carla nodding, that knowing nodding. So let me hear what Carla have in that brain of hers.
For us in this pandemic situation, when it comes down to relationships, I would say, and we've kind of said it before, time is very precious. It's okay for you to prioritize the people who are most important to you. Sometimes you won't get to spend time with everybody else in the same way, and that's okay. It's okay to give yourself the space to change. Also, give yourself the space to change. The people who are meant to continue on with you will continue on with you. I think in a case like a pandemic and the world feels like it's becoming so small and we're afraid of loss and we feel, let me hold on to everything I have, you can start to clutch on to things that you know you should not keep. And I think the third thing that I would say for relationships is, sometimes what the person is saying to you is not what you're hearing. You're hearing what you expect to hear. You're hearing what you hope not to hear. So give yourself a moment to learn how to listen and be deliberate about learning how to hear people. And sometimes what that means is, when the person is talking to you, just repeat to yourself, I love this person. I love this person. I actually love this person. And for me, sometimes when the ego start flare and the little trigger them come, I'll just be like, I love this person. Now, what is a compassionate and loving way that I can listen to this person? And sometimes that's the thing that will soften the barriers between me and the person, and that allows us to come closer into relationship with each other.
Powerful lesson, and it's applicable all year round, pandemic or no. So thank you for those gems, Carla. Pat, any final thoughts on relationships in particular from you?
The final thoughts on relationship would be, as I was saying earlier, not to take anything for granted. Tell your people that you love them, and for the ones that you don't love, cut them off. Now that we know how fragile life is, it is not worth it. So use this 9 months that we've had to really look at our lives. The ones which are valuable to you, keep them and love them and nurture that relationship. And the ones which are not valuable to you, cut them off. It is better to grieve that loss than to entertain the toxicity. And my final word is, in a session like this forum that we're using, we can answer questions generally, but I want everyone listening to understand that therapy is something very, very useful, because what it does is zones into your particular, your unique circumstance. And the therapist is able to answer your questions as it relates to only you, because all of us, we might have a general problem, but in therapy, you get the opportunity to drill down to your particular problem. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling uncertain, whatever the feeling is, get the help that you need. It is no longer addictive. You can call it anxiety. It's all right. Call it anxiety and we will deal with it.
Yeah,
Okay?
we'll tease it out.
Yes.
We could not have left the space without these powerful reminders and lessons to move forward. Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Pat. I absolutely enjoyed every moment of time we spent with both of you. And I must say, I love all of our attendees and I love JN Group. So that's my love letter for the evening. Thanks to Tiffany. Thanks to Patricia, Sharon, all of you for sharing so generously in the comment section in the chat. And I see a couple persons asking about the possibility of having continuing education credits from the live class. I'll talk to the team about it and see if that can be streamlined for now or for the future. But thank you for trusting us so much that you would ask us for something of that nature. So thanks to the tech team. Thanks to everyone. Rani, thank you for joining us from Houston, Texas. Thanks to all of you, Novia, for sharing all the love. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And of course, big thank you. Let's leave the space dropping some blue and yellow hearts in the chat to give JN our absolute appreciation for bringing us back into a powerful space like this. Thank you, everyone. Until next time, be well, be good to you. And as Carla said, you are a whole person too. You is people, so treat people well. Pilar, good to see you again. Andrew, enough love to all of you. Odette, so many familiar names by now. Thank you so much. And until next week, take care of you and come back and bring some people and have a wonderful rest of the week.
Bye. Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I feel like nobody
Bye,
wants
Kamala.
I know.
Yes.
Yes.
Fabulous. 8:30 on the dot. I love it. I'll come back.
Please do, and bring some friends, Pat. I know you have many of
Carla,
those.
yeah. Carla, when all of this is over, we can meet for a drink, the three of us.
Yes.
Without mask.
Oh gosh. Talk it no, Pat.
See you for the rest of the season.
All right, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Ciao.